So, welcome back, everybody. It's time again for another episode of Living Hope, a weekly journey designed to provide hope, inspiration, and education for those living with pancreatic cancer. Sharing the real life stories of those really affected by this deadly disease and how they deal with it on a daily basis. And today, well, we're not going to just talk about the people on the journey, we're going to talk about those around the journey, those accompanying them on the journey, as we talk with our host, who's accompanied many, Roberta Luna.
Thank you, Paul. It's a little tough following that news story.
Yeah, it is, I know.
We got to find some better news.
What behind the happy news, the happy news channel, right?
I know, right? We got to do something. Anyway, thank you. It's a pleasure to be back. And today we have Stephanie with us, who was recently with us earlier. We talked about being a caregiver. And I actually received some interesting and good feedback about people wanting us to talk a little bit more about the subject. And Stephanie kindly agreed to come back and share more of her experiences. Thank you, Stephanie, for returning. And just for people real quick, if you provide help to another person in need, then you are considered a caregiver. So I just wanted to throw that out there because people were asking, well, what exactly is a caregiver? And you were a caregiver.
Yes, I was.
To your grandmother and your mother-in-law, and kind of in different ways.
Let's get her to lean in a little bit. She's leaning back again on here. She was leaning close, and now she's going to kick back here.
Getting too comfortable here.
It was that last news. It really brought me down.
I think so.
So with my grandmother, we have nurses in the family, and so I was more of a support. I would show up and read devotionals to her, bring her water. She wanted a beer, so bringing her beer. She wanted us to decorate cookies, so, decorating cookies to show her. It was mentioned that I modeled for her, so she wanted to see, what I was wearing and model it. She liked putting my shoes on, so I'd help her with that. It was, more of, I was like a morale booster for her, tap dancing, singing, trying to, keep her not happy, but, in good spirits.
Can we see some of the tap dancing and singing today? No, probably not.
Not today.
I want to see the stilettos you got your grandma to wear. That's what I want to see.
Stilettos? Oh, my
She
goodness.
did.
Oh,
She
my
did.
goodness.
She was very happy to see them on her feet. She really was.
We got to get some of that in here, some pictures or something. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Also, she, we'd do a stroll around the house in a wheelchair. So it was really, I had the easy part of it, but I didn't want to miss a day not seeing her and being able to do that because I knew our time was short.
Yeah. I don't really think you had the easy part. I mean, I think caregiving is generally, none of it is really easy, and it's very emotional. So I think you had really an emotional part. But it's really important, and I felt the same as I was caregiver for my mom and my dad, and to try to do whatever you could to make them happy or at least feel better, because it seems like when they were laughing or not thinking about what was going on with them, then that was a positive. And I think you were a little bit more of a traditional, what we think of a traditional caregiver for your mother-in-law.
I was. So my husband and I were actually in New Orleans when we found out that she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and we flew to Chicago from there, and we relocated. She had decided not to have treatment, and so we weren't quite sure how long, but we had discussed in length before she was ill that I would take care of her. And so, she looked to me and I agreed. I said, I'll do whatever you want. So I was her advocate, really, talking to the doctors, making sure that I got all of the information, handling the insurance, making sure we had everything we needed at home to keep her comfortable, speaking to the family and making sure that they understood. I think the most important thing was making sure my mother-in-law was comfortable and that we were doing what she wanted. If she didn't want certain medication, we weren't going to give it to her. If she did want certain medication, we were going to give it to her. Feeding her, making sure that no one was forcing her to eat when she wasn't hungry. Keeping things private, her dignity it was so important to me to make sure she kept her dignity. So, shooing people away when she needed things to be private. Um, and then later, when home health care came, it was, discussing with home health care, where she was at in her journey, and then making sure the family understood, what was really going on, and what was about to happen.
And I know sometimes dealing with family can be very difficult. So when you had to talk to the family, how were they taking the news? What was their reaction?
Denial. My husband was more on board with what I had to say because he knew I had already been through it. Um, I have nurses in my family, and so I get that perspective when we're dealing with, medical things. Um, they were trying to find ways to, like, holistic ways to cure her, to give her an appetite. Often people think that if you feed someone, they'll be well. And so their idea was to, just stuff her with food if they could. And she didn't want to. So I often became like this like Brutus, this like a bouncer, She would give me a look, and I'd be like, nope, nope, get out of here, stay away from her, or, she's not hungry, or don't make her. And it caused a rift. It really did, especially with the hierarchy of the family. They weren't pleased with me telling them what to do because I'm the youngest
Mhm.
of all of them. So that put a strain on our relationship.
Was it difficult? I mean, you said you were the youngest, but you weren't blood related. She was your mother-in-law. Did her family or her other kids have problems or issues with you taking on this task?
No, I taking on the task, no. And I don't want to sound I don't want to offend anybody, but no one wanted to do it. And I was fine doing it. I wanted to do it, and she wanted me to as well. And I think once they all saw me caring for her, they appreciated that I was doing it, especially my father in law. I remember he told me, "You're my daughter, and I like how you're taking care of her, and I like how protective you are." And that's all I needed to hear, you know.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, and maybe not so much that not wanting to do it, but it's hard. And I think it really does take a special person to be a caregiver. I mean, there are professional caregivers out there that you can hire to come in, but I think you lose something in not doing a lot of it yourself if you can. But some people they just can't. And it's always good to have somebody who is able to take on that task. For me, I really had no choice. I'm an only child, so it's not like I can really, I mean, my sons, of course, would help, and my husband, Vic, but it's different when it's, your family and your parent. But I mean, it can be very difficult, but I didn't have anybody to argue with me as far as what I was doing. I mean, and I agree. It's when I know with my mom, seeing how much weight she had dropped and stuff, we were trying to get her to eat. And I remember, trying to force her to tell her she needed to eat, but then she had a very feisty and had a temper. And when, realized that was not going to work, we just decided to back off. And when she wanted something, she would tell us, or we would have nuts and stuff sitting around the house that she could snack on. Or really her favorite thing to snack on was See's candy. And I remember being kind of jealous because all I have to do is look at it and there's 5 pounds, and we couldn't even get her to put a pound on. She would go through all of our Christmas candy. But it's really a tough job to be the caregiver. But I think there's also some rewards to it as well.
Absolutely. I felt honored. She and I were very close. We lived together. But going through this last part, we just, we really just had this understanding, and my boys got to see that relationship, grow even more, and the respect and the love that we had, it was obvious. And, the trust, I think her trusting me, I don't think I've ever felt that trust more than I did with her.
So you had a really good relationship before she got sick.
We did. We did. We lived together, and she was a phenomenal person. But mother in law, I learned how to be, a mother-in-law because of the way she treated me. And it was just generous and caring, and um, she would do anything for her children, but that included me. So it was easy to fall into that role. That was difficult at times. It gets messy. It's intimate, so you're really getting personal. At a certain point, she had to have a catheter, and she was very modest. So, she had said, "Don't look." um, and her skin was beautiful. So keeping her skin, I wanted to keep it the way she had it. So, just trying to keep certain things the the way she had them, the way she had kept herself. She was very beautiful. Um, you know, that was important to her, so it was important to me.
Yeah, you say, to try to keep the dignity there. I remember how difficult it could be. I mean, I was taking care of my dad, and that's not, I mean, my dad was a very proud man, and to see him wearing Depends and have to change him, and he would tell me the same thing because I'm the only one there, and he's like, don't look, don't look. So I would have to actually close my eyes so I could try to do something, and that's a little difficult to do, but you do what you can because you want them. They need to have that dignity, and it's very important, and it's really hard to, I mean, we go full circle, they're our caregivers and then we become their caregivers, but it's a little different, I think, changing your daughter's diaper than having your daughter change your diaper. And it was a very difficult time for my dad, and like I say, you try to keep that dignity as much as you can. What other things, or advice or wisdom do you have that you can tell people, how some other ways that maybe they can help in keeping that dignity so that they do, I mean, there's so many emotions that goes with this.
It's very emotional. I'd say, really speak to the person you're caring for and ask them what they want, and then make sure that you do everything you can to give that to them. So, giving them time to themselves, or, privacy, um, asking them if they're hungry, and then respecting them when they say they don't want it. My mother-in-law wanted my sons in bed with her. So telling the boys, you need to go and lay down, with grandma. Uh, Giving her time with her siblings. She had said she didn't want to rehash any old feuds. So making it clear, don't bring up old stuff. Um, Making sure that her children understood what was really happening, and, telling them to spend time with her because that's what she wanted. And bringing laughter,
Mhm.
just really bringing laughter to to them every day, because at the end, that's all that you can really give them, is to try to make them comfortable, and keep them happy.
You told us some of the ways you made your grandma happy and brought laughter into her life. And what were some ways that you were able to do that with your mother-in-law? I'm sure it was a little bit different.
We both like to watch old movies, so watching old movies, um, reading to her, um, singing. She loved music. She had a beautiful voice, a beautiful voice. She sang opera, so in her country. So, music and hearing the children laugh. Her grandkids were everything to her. She just loved all of them. So, just having her grandkids in the room, talking to each other, hearing her own children talk to each other and laugh. She loved that. So, giving her all of that. That's what I could do for her.
Did you try to keep things as normal as possible, or was that kind of difficult to do with the circumstance?
It was difficult. There was nothing normal about how things went. People from out of the country came. People from different states came and stayed with us. In my opinion, they overstayed their welcome. Stayed with us while we were caring for her. And so there was really nothing normal about the situation. But um, I we tried to we all tried to keep our relationship the same, with her.
Yeah, it is difficult when people come, like you say, you think they overstayed sometimes. And I know there's, my mom used to always say something about fish after 3 days starts to stink. So, but what kind of advice could you give people that, had that same thing happen? Because I know that happens to a lot of people that, and you're trying not to tire out the person you're taking care of, but at the same time, people want to see her and want to be with her. So, what's some good advice or ways? I mean, did you have a time schedule, or what was some ways that you could do that?
I did have a time schedule, so it was me. I would say you have, at the beginning, she had a little bit more energy, but at the end, I would say you have 5 minutes and, you know, try not to um, ask her questions. You can, let her know how you feel. She would appreciate no crying, the emotion, it exhausts her. But, we'd have a time limit. At the beginning, it was more like 20 minutes. I'd say you have 20 minutes and then she needs her rest. Or, you need to give this time to her children and her grandchildren. So, yeah, like I said, I was like a Brutus. I'd go in and be like, okay, it's time to go. You need to leave.
You set a timer after 20 minutes.
I had a watch, and I kept time. I was really strict. And she thought it was funny. All she had to do is give me a look, and I knew. I'd be like, okay, let's wrap it up.
Time's over. Huh?
I'd open the front door and tell them to go.
For me, we're gonna play the song that Willie Nelson sings. The party's over. Turn off the lights. The party's over. That's gonna be my cue for people. So, but yeah, it's difficult to have to go in and tell them because they want to linger. They want to. So, and to give everybody the time, it's got to be a difficult way. I mean, to go and tell somebody, I'm sorry, your time is up, because they want to be with her as well.
Yes.
So how did you take care of yourself? Because as a caregiver, it's very important that, you also take care of yourself. How were you able to do that and still do everything else as well?
I didn't. I'll just be honest. I dropped a lot of weight. Normally, when I'm in a situation like that, I don't eat. So I dropped a lot of weight. I lost a lot of hair. I didn't sleep much. My children got sick because of some of the visitors that came to stay with us. They got sick. So in turn, they got my children sick. So I was caring for my boys that were ill and, making sure my husband was okay and caring for my mother-in-law. So I didn't have time for that. I just didn't. I really, honestly, I forgot about myself in that time.
So to prevent people, because you need to take care of yourself as well as a caregiver, otherwise you are not able a lot of times to be there for somebody else. Do you have any advice on what people should probably do, not maybe follow exactly your footsteps there?
I would not advise taking, doing the same things I did. Stepping away for a moment, expressing how important it is for someone else to take over, so you can have at least 30 minutes of quiet time. Taking a nap in the day, asking someone to, sit with them for 45 minutes while you take a nap. Making sure you're eating regularly. In my case, the smell really bothered my mother-in-law, and so I didn't want to make her feel ill, and I should have just snuck away for a bite here and there. Um, I'd say rest was probably the most important, and so getting rest, I would recommend that over and over and over again.
Yeah. And maybe you could even split up some of the things that you were trying to do. I mean, I don't know, everything you were doing, obviously, but having somebody, like do the grocery shopping. I mean, caregivers can come in many different ways. They can be the ones who do the grocery shopping, maybe the ones who do the laundry, run errands. I don't know if you were trying to do, knowing you, I'm sure you were probably trying to do everything. And
I was.
maybe just designate, be instead of trying to be so much of a control engineer, but learn how to designate. And I'm a really good one at giving advice and not always following it, so I understand and get it. But as a caregiver, caregivers really need to take care of themselves so they don't fall apart and can continue, because it is very emotional.
It is. It is. And I was like you said, I was trying to do everything. Laundry. It was in someone else's house, finding linens and doing laundry and, you know, cleaning up and bathing and, moisturizing and doing all that for the patient. But yes, having a chore chart and speaking up. I was a little bit younger. Now that I'm older, I can, I feel comfortable saying this is what I need, where before I would never have. So, just speaking up and saying we need to divide to do this to give our loved one the best care we can.
And not to put anybody on the spot, but was family willing to kind of step up and help with other things other than, maybe her personal caregiving, or did it all just kind of fall on you?
Um, I feel like everybody's life around us went on. Um, I I'd say it just pretty much did fall on me, and I don't know if it was just natural or it was because I just took the reins. I'm not really sure. That's a good question. I've never thought about that, but it just really felt like it did fall on me.
Yeah. Being a caregiver can be very emotional and trigger a lot of emotions, anger, fear, resentment, guilt, helplessness. Did you feel any of those? Or did you allow yourself to feel any of those?
I felt guilt. I felt like I should have been taking better care of her before she had her diagnosis. Um, I still feel guilty because I feel like I could have done a better job caring for her. Um, and then, after she passed away, after she died, it I felt guilt because I still had my own parents. And watching my husband and his siblings go through such a huge loss, and the grandchildren, I felt guilt for having my own parents still.
Mm. Yeah, the guilt is very heavy. I felt that too with my dad, because I saw things and I thought that should have been my clue that there was something else going on, and I didn't. And it's something we feel, but we need not to, and I don't know how not to do it, but because it wouldn't have changed anything. And just from what I know from you and the care that you gave your mother-in-law and your grandmother, I think you were an exceptional caregiver. And if I could take the guilt away from you, I would love to do that. And it's like I said, it can be a lot of emotions. But what are some positives that you took away from your experience?
I think I gained the respect, some respect from my father-in-law, because I, hadn't known them long. It changed my marriage, and in a good way. We had gone through something together, and it was an example for my boys to know how important it is to take care of our family, and to give love and respect and kindness, and how not to do certain things. So I'd say those are all positive things.
They are, and you have to look for the positive, because when you lose somebody, it's so devastating and so many emotions that any positive you can walk away from. And it's kind of sad in a way that it takes something like this for us to find that.
Yeah.
But I agree, losing my parents changed us as well for the better. I mean, of course we would all go back and change things if we could, but I think we all gained something positive from it. And I think that's what we have to look forward to, because it's just can be so devastating. But I want to thank you for coming and talking more about being a caregiver, and for all those that, do want to dedicate this show to all the caregivers, especially mine and all of those out there, and thank them for their care, support, and love during our journey. And I'd also like to end with a little quote from former First Lady Rosalind Carter, who said, "There are only 4 kinds of people in this world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers." Caregiving is universal, and I totally agree with what she said. And I want to thank you again for coming and sharing your journey and being honest and open with us. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. Well, there's a real honest, open discussion of a topic that too few of us are ready to face when it does come our way, when we need a caregiver or have to be a caregiver. I've been there. I'm sure many of you have been there too. And we hope that you'll share this with somebody who is there right now, as we share our weekly stories, our weekly journey designed to provide hope, inspiration, and education for those living with pancreatic cancer, sharing the real-life stories of those really affected by this disease and how everyone around them deals with it on a daily basis. If you'd like to share your story, please contact us here at the station, OC Talk Radio. And if you or anyone you know, there's lots of information, lots of places you go. We give organizations each and every week One of them is certainly PanCan. You can certainly call 877-2 PANCAN for help right now. That's the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. And many others, Hirschberg and many places we talk about here. We're going to have more coming up in this coming year. All in the hope that you'll find something positive, some strength as you go through this journey of life.